Unit 7, Bonds, Introduction to the Measurement of Interest Rate Risk. Lecture 5, Price Volatility of Bonds, Part A. In this unit, we're going to learn how to measure the impact of a change in the interest rate or yield on bond prices. Now we know that bond prices in the valuation models that we use are dependent upon the coupon, the maturity, the face value, and the yield to maturity. Now for all bonds, we know that the coupon, the maturity, and the face value are fixed, meaning that the only factor or the only input that can have an impact on the price of a bond is yield to maturity or interest rates. So we're going to learn how to calculate the impact of that change. Now, as in life, the most sensitive one is to an outside influence, the most significantly one reacts, and the same applies to bonds. A bond with a high price volatility, that is a high sensitivity to changes in interest rate, will experience relatively large percentage price changes for a given change in yields. And this can have a significant impact on portfolio values. Although bond prices are influenced by yield behavior or changes in interest rate, it is also influenced by par value, coupon, and maturity. We'll talk about them in a little more detail as we go on. Now we're looking here at the yield curve, which is a graph of the bond's price and the yield to maturity. Now you'll notice that the graph is convex, which means that it's downward sloping, but it flattens as it gets to the bottom. You'll also notice on this graph that callable bonds seem to have a ceiling on their price and puttable bonds appear to have a floor. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is in the next few slides. Here we're looking at the factors that impact on the bond price volatility of option-free bonds. And what we learn is that for a given change in yields, longer maturity bonds have larger price changes, meaning that bond price volatility is directly related to maturity. However, as the term increases, bond price volatility increases, but at a diminishing rate. That means as the term to maturity gets longer and longer, there is a slowdown in the increase in price volatility. Now, when we look at price movements resulting from equal increase or decreases in yield, it's not symmetrical because the price yield curve is convex and it flattens out as you get to the bottom. The price change is greater for lower yields than for higher yields. Higher coupon issues show smaller percentage price changes for a given change in yield, and this means that price volatility is inversely related to coupon. And the reason for that is with a lower coupon, you have less money that you receive at the earlier stages in a bond's maturity. So interest rate changes are going to affect the value. If you receive a larger coupon, you receive larger payments earlier in the bond's maturity, and that means interest rates don't have as significant an impact. We're going to focus now on how changes in interest rates affect the price volatility of bonds with embedded options. Callable bonds are bonds that come with an embedded option that the issuer can exercise. And this is to the disadvantage of the investor because the call will be exercised when interest rates fall. Now, when interest rates fall, we know that bond prices rise, but the bond price of a callable option will be limited to the call price. So there is a ceiling on the price. And this is referred to as price compression. So this means that callable bonds are less risky, have less price volatility when interest rates are falling, but when interest rates are rising, callable bonds behave exactly the same as option-free bonds. Puttable bonds are bonds that come with an embedded put option which the investor can exercise. So this is most likely going to be done when interest rates are rising, because a rise in interest rates results in a fall in bond prices, and the investor will want to sell the bond back to the issuer so that they can reinvest those funds in a bond with a higher coupon. So essentially, putable bonds have a floor, so there's price compression, and putable bonds will behave like option-free bonds when interest rates are falling, but they will have less price volatility when interest rates are rising. Now we're going to move on to actually calculating bond price volatility, or the percentage change in prices for changes in interest rate or yield. So we can now calculate the amount of the price change for yield change. That is, we can determine how much a bond's value or price will change for a specific change in yield, because we want to know which bonds will benefit the most from a yield change, and we know that changes in interest rate can have vastly different price changes for different bonds. We're going to look at how we can measure the percentage change in the price of the bond. And we can do this by using the ending price of the bond, dividing it by the beginning price minus 1. Now, if we know how much the interest rate is changed by, we can work out the ending price. If we have an ending price and a beginning price, we can work out the percentage change. So this is the first measure of interest rate sensitivity, the most basic measure.